January, the winter-forged prototype. If you were born in January, your body finished assembly in the cold before sunlight was doing anything useful. Late pregnancy happened during the darkest stretch of the year, which meant your biology had to improvise with limited resources. Low light pushes melatonin higher and forces heavier reliance on brown fat, the heat-producing tissue babies use to not freeze immediately. Brown fat is basically internal firewood. You burn it to stay warm, and it does not politely retire after infancy. It sticks around like an overachieving space heater, quietly burning energy in the background. That leaves January-born bodies with better cold tolerance, a slightly more efficient baseline metabolism, and a natural bias toward leanness. Your system learned early that warmth and calories were not guaranteed, so it stopped wasting energy on panic. That wiring shows up later. Winter-born adults tend to tolerate longer gaps between meals without unraveling, not because of discipline, but because their metabolism switches fuel sources smoothly, instead of acting like it missed breakfast once and may never recover. Research also finds slightly higher novelty-seeking scores. Not thrill-seeking, more like discomfort tolerance. You are more willing to do things that feel mildly unpleasant because your nervous system does not interpret inconvenience as danger. The trade-offs are predictable. Low maternal vitamin D in the third trimester is common for January births and is linked to slightly higher risks of preterm birth and lower birth weight. Later in life, there is a modest increase in risks for higher blood pressure, multiple sclerosis, and schizophrenia. Nothing dramatic, just winter leaving fingerprints on the blueprint and walking away quietly. February, the immune system boot camp. If January was cold exposure, February is pathogen exposure. Being born in February means arriving during peak virus season, when respiratory infections circulate freely and hand washing becomes a group suggestion. February babies are more likely to get sick early, which sounds unfortunate until the immune system responds by growing up faster. Early immune stress trains faster maturation and sharper responses. February-born individuals tend to run fevers that actually work. They reach pathogen clearing temperatures instead of hovering uselessly like a thermostat afraid of commitment. That early immune challenge also fine-tunes inflammatory signaling, which helps explain why some February births show strong resistance to later infections. Allergy patterns shift as well. Winter births show higher rates of early food sensitivities, while summer births skew toward pollen allergies. It is not destiny, it is immune memory, shaped by timing. The downside is that the same early immune stress correlates with slightly higher risks of childhood asthma and type 1 diabetes. February is also the least common birth month, despite a suspicious spike in conceptions mid-February. And if you were born on the 29th, you are walking calendar chaos. Small studies even suggest leap day births live slightly longer, possibly because development under those conditions filters out anything fragile enough to complain. March, the return of light. March births hit the point where daylight finally starts coming back during late pregnancy. That timing matters. More sunlight boosts maternal vitamin D in the third trimester, which helps bones, lungs, and the immune system finish building with proper materials instead of scraps. March babies tend to arrive a little heavier, with stronger bones and better early lung function. This is not luck, it is better lighting. March babies also tend to stay in the womb slightly longer than deep winter births, gaining extra time to finish developing. Less pulled out early, more actually done cooking. Later in life, March births show lower risks of autoimmune disease, lower blood pressure, and lower obesity rates. Cognitive outcomes tilt upward too, with slightly higher test scores and lower ADHD rates, likely because winter stress eased near the end, fewer alarms going off while things were still setting. The downside is small, a mild increase in childhood asthma from winter exposure. Overall, March looks like biology exiting survival mode and switching to optimization. April, the calm weather build. April babies finish development during mild, boring weather, and biology loves boring. Late pregnancy happens with steady temperatures and decent sunlight, which means fewer stress hormones and fewer problems to work around. When conditions are calm, development goes smoother. April babies tend to land right in the sweet spot for birth weight, with lungs that had time to finish growing without interruptions. Less emergency construction, more planned build. This timing is also linked to fewer early breathing issues, mostly because late pregnancy infections are less common. There is a long-term bonus too. Babies born in April are more likely to grow taller, hit puberty a bit later, and handle stress better as adults. Not because of personality, because biology was not busy putting out fires. The trade-off shows up later. Being born right before pollen season means early exposure once you are a toddler. Pregnancy was smooth. Your sinuses were not consulted. May, the clean start build. May babies finish development under some of the best conditions of the year. Late pregnancy happens with steady sunlight, rising vitamin D, and fewer viruses going around. In biological terms, this is like being built when the shop is quiet and fully stocked. May babies tend to arrive with solid birth weights, strong early lung function, and fewer early complications. Nothing rushed, nothing skipped. Long-term data backs this up. People born in May show the lowest overall lifetime disease risk and a noticeably lower risk of heart disease. Their systems started out with fewer problems to compensate for. The only real cost was paid during pregnancy. Most of it overlapped winter, when getting sick was easier and treatment options were limited. Your biology benefited from the timing. Your mom dealt with flu season on hard mode. June, the daylight advantage. June babies arrive when daylight is at its longest, which helps the body set a strong day-night rhythm early. More light during late pregnancy tunes sleep hormones and mood systems before they even have a chance to get confused. Biology likes clear schedules. June babies also tend to have higher birth weights, stronger bones, and later puberty timing. Growth had time and light to do its thing. Some studies even show small advantages in coordination sports, where timing matters more than brute force. Turns out growing up with lots of daylight helps you know where your body is. The downside is mostly visual. June births show a slightly higher risk of nearsightedness, possibly because early light exposure affects eye growth. You got better rhythm and mood stability. Your eyesight made a small sacrifice. July, the heat-trained build. July babies finish development during real summer heat, which trains the body's cooling and circulation systems early. Late pregnancy happens while everything is warm, so the cardiovascular system works harder just to keep things balanced. Biology learns fast when overheating is on the table. July babies tend to tolerate heat better later in life and do well in endurance activities, where staying cool actually matters. Running, cycling, outdoor sports, heat does not scare them indoors. Their systems learned early how to deal with it. The trade-offs are obvious. More sun exposure raises skin cancer risk, especially for fair skin, and newborns are more sensitive to dehydration in those first weeks. Once past that stage, July bodies stop complaining about summer and wonder why everyone else is melting. August, the sun-soaked build. August babies finish development with sunlight everywhere. Late pregnancy happens during peak summer, when vitamin D levels are high and the body has no shortage of light to work with. In simple terms, everything grows with the lights fully on. August babies tend to arrive a little bigger, with stronger bones and a tendency to grow taller later on. Summer timing also shows up in temperament. People born in August are slightly more likely to be optimistic, outgoing, and generally less moody. Hard to be gloomy when your biology was built in bright conditions. There is one predictable downside. August babies are often the youngest in their school year, which means early comparisons are unfair. Not slower, just younger. Biology did its job, the calendar caused the drama. September, the Head Start build. September babies often arrive right before school cut-off dates, which quietly gives them a head start. Being the oldest in the class means more time to grow, coordinate, and pay attention before anyone starts comparing scores. That age gap does a lot of work early on. Biology helps too. Late summer sunlight during pregnancy keeps vitamin D levels high, which supports bone growth and overall development. September births tend to grow a bit taller and show lower risks of certain neurological conditions later in life. Their systems had time and light to finish properly. The downside is small. Early fall brings pollen, so September babies have a slightly higher chance of seasonal allergies. Biology gave them the edge. Plants made things itchy. October, the sturdy build. October babies finish development as temperatures cool and routines settle in. Late pregnancy happens during steady conditions, which helps bones grow denser and systems develop with fewer surprises. Biology likes consistency. October gets a lot of it. People born in October tend to show stronger bone density and lower risks of heart disease and some cancers later in life. Mental health outcomes also look solid, with lower rates of certain mood disorders. Nothing flashy, just a body that was built to last. The downside shows up early. October babies arrive right as virus season starts, which means more colds and breathing issues in infancy, a rough opening act. The long-term structure holds up just fine. November, the resilient build. November babies finish development as fall settles in and temperatures cool down. Late pregnancy happens during steady conditions with fewer extremes, which helps stress systems stay calm while everything finishes forming. Biology likes stability. November delivers it. People born in November tend to show lower rates of depression and seasonal mood issues later in life, along with solid heart and lung health. Endurance also runs a bit higher on average. Their systems learned early how to keep going without overreacting. The downside comes at the start. November babies arrive just as cold and flu season ramps up, which means more early infections and a slightly higher asthma risk. A rough welcome. The long-term setup is still solid. December, the winter competitive build. December babies arrive as winter fully sets in, which quietly trains cold tolerance early. Late pregnancy and early infancy happen in low temperatures, so the body learns fast how to conserve heat and stay regulated. Biology does not complain. It adapts. December birthdays also land well for age-grouped sports. In calendar year leagues, December kids are often among the oldest and biggest early on, which leads to more playing time, better coaching, and a confidence boost that compounds. A few months on the calendar do a surprising amount of work. The downside shows up early. Winter viruses are everywhere, so December babies face higher risks of early respiratory issues and allergies, and birthdays tend to get swallowed by holidays. Biology gave them resilience, the calendar gave them joint presence. If you like biology explained with sarcasm, subscribe. It explains your birth month without asking what time you were born.